Good evening. Thank you for joining in with us tonight. Jeff Rosenkrantz, Captain, Harrison Township Fire Department. Again, Pickaway Township. We're north of the city of Circleville, south of the city of Columbus. We're one fire department, one house, 127 square miles. Operate with about 8 guys a day. Like Jordan just said, Jordan's our newest recent hire. Just started with us the other day. We average about 32 to 3,400 calls a year. I'm going to go ahead and apologize ahead of time. Yesterday I was on shift, very, very busy shift for us, and we had a working fire from midnight to about 6:30. So it's one of those days where I didn't even get to make my bed. So we'll try to keep this around an hour, and I'll do my best to try not to stumble. But if you, like Jordan said, if you guys got anything, just shoot your questions out, let us know, and we'll do our best to get them answered.
What's up, little dude?
So when we talk about like a driver operator, or what we refer to them kind of in my department is an engineer, pump operators, so the definition of a driver operator, driver engineer, is a title used to describe the firefighter position that is in charge of driving an apparatus, engine, trucks, squads, ladders, whatever you refer to that apparatus as. Hold on. That's again, Dad was gone all weekend training, worked yesterday on shift, so he's just a little irritated. But call your driver. This is the fire engineering's definition of a driver engineer or a driver operator. It can be departmental, so whatever your department refers to that person as, again, whether it's an engineer, a pump operator, any title that you use will work for your department. So the roles and responsibilities of a driver operator, or in my world, we refer to him as an engineer. That person should have general knowledge of the truck and the equipment on that truck. When I say that, it's, so for my driver, I can ask him, like I said, hey, how much oil dry do you have on here? We have an oil dry dispenser, so he can tell me, hey, we have, roughly 2 bags. Or, you ask him, hey, is the air chisel on here? The equipment that really doesn't get used a whole lot, it's that person's responsibility to make sure that that truck is functioning, ready to go, and it has the proper equipment to function for any tasks that may pop off throughout your shift. As a driver operator, you should know the functions of your truck. I talk about the functions of that truck. So like for ours, our front line is a 2017 Smeel. We're starting to run into some mechanical issues. I'm not mechanically sound at all. So when something breaks down on my vehicle, I take it to a mechanic. Something breaks at my house, I get somebody to fix it. I'm just not mechanically inclined. So, but my driver operator is, if there's a new squeal or a new squeak, the tires, something doesn't feel right, with that person driving on a regular basis and knowing that truck in and out, that he knows when something's not right, and he knows what the limitations are of his truck and what his truck can and cannot do. As a driver operator and engineer for the day, so if you don't have permanent spots, you're rotating. A good thing to know is your first and second due districts. Again, perfect example, we're 127 square miles in Pickaway County, Ohio. Excuse me. So our district is very big. Our first due district is ginormous, and we had a fire at 11:59 last night, and I've got a brand new orientee with me, and I've got a lot of other stuff going on. We build our own run cards as we're going down the road. So the last thing I want to try to do is give my driver direction or tell him. So my driver learns, hey, this is my responsibility. I know where I'm going. He pulls out or she pulls out. They know the direction of travel they have to go. They learn the number breaks. Are the high numbers north? Are the high numbers south? Odd and even, those type of things. Knowledge of your mutual aid companies and their districts. How many of us are running automatic aid? How many of us are getting requested for mutual aid nowadays? And the days where we try to handle a lot of stuff on our own, at least in my world, are far and few between. We go mutual aid a lot. Used yesterday again as an example. We had to call in mutual aid 6 or 7 times out of the 15 to 16 that we had total yesterday. Driver operator should be fairly good at troubleshooting. If you start having issues with your truck, or there's something that pops off, there's a DAS message, there's a warning indicator, or something just doesn't seem right, they should be the first line of defense to try to figure out how to mitigate and get that problem fixed so your truck can maintain service. The driver operator assists with maintenance. Again, small repairs. Is there something that driver operator can do? Again, recently in my world, my driver, he takes care of switching out the pump discharge gauges. He takes care of packing the pumps. He does a lot of that stuff that normal times we would have to send it out. As a safety officer, again, first due engine company operators, first due engine work. On a 3-man engine company, 2 people are probably going to be trying to do an attack. Officers getting his walk around, firefighters pulling a line. So that driver, you're looking at the scene, and if you see something that doesn't look right, you're a safety officer. When crews go interior, you're kind of a safety officer. You're looking around. Do you see something that doesn't seem right? Do you see people that don't need to be there? Is the roof sagging that the interior crews don't see? Broadcast those things. My world, accountability, I assign it to my first or second due engine company driver. It's engine 801's on the scene, we got a working fire, engine 801 has accountability, or engine 802 will have accountability, just somehow. So those are some other tasks that you may take on as a driver operator. Throw this in here that you may have to cook as well. That's something that a lot of people don't get to see a whole lot around here, but and if it's your world, then you will. Again, I apologize, my son's out there throwing a temper tantrum. At the end, we'll try to throw up this driver engineer article that was written by Fire Engineering. Some of the stuff that I took and put into this presentation, I utilized some of the same things, and our points are almost identical of what I feel is the responsibilities and roles of a pump operator, and Fire Engineering kind of hit a lot of it spot on too. And it's a good article to read for those that are interested. I'll try to pull up this as well at the end. Again, I apologize that sharing the screen and the Zoom stuff, we were having some bugs we're still trying to work out. But it's just, your department, if this is something that you're going to look into, or this is something you think may work for you, or you're doing it, we all have job descriptions, whether you're the fire chief, the assistant chief, captain, lieutenant, firefighter, fire marshal. Everybody has some type of a job description, or something that they revert back to what we should be doing and the roles that we should be filling. And so becoming a driver operator, that may be one of those things that you add in there to say, hey, this could either be a promoted spot, an appointed spot, again, or however your entity decides to throw that in there. Expectations. Again, this is a lot of my personal opinion or some of the values and with experience and time on the job that I feel are very important. So we talk about the expectations. What's your self-expectation? If you're the driver assigned to drive that engine, that truck, rescue, medic, whatever it is for that day, what do you want? Are you comfortable? Are you comfortable responding? Are you comfortable clearing those intersections? What are you going to do to make sure that you are safe and your crew is safe? What's the expectations of your company officer or the person that's in charge for the day? Have you met with that individual? Again, having a permanent operator, I have sat down with him and we've discussed like, hey man, when we're first doing a fire, this is what I need you to do. When we're on an auto accident, excuse me, and we're first due, these are the steps and the roles that I expect you to do. Crew expectations. Again, from the bottom of the barrel all the way up to the top, senior firefighter to the newest firefighter. Again, I'm going to go use Jordan for an example. He's our brand new rookie at Harrison Township. He's still got an expectation of what he thinks that driver should be doing. He wants to go home at the end of his shift. He wants to make sure that the truck's positioned right. So it's talking about those things with these individuals will help you set you up for success. Department expectations and community expectations. So as again, driver operator, what are the expectations from your fire department? What do they want from you? And do you know what they are? And then the community. Have you interacted with your community? Do they have, do they know what you do? Do you get out? Do you see them? Do you go to the grocery store? Do you keep the children hats in your truck? Does somebody stay with your truck when you go to the store? So as people come up, hey, can I see your truck? Yeah, sure, climb in. Here's some hats. Get yourself known and talk to some of these people every now and then. Safe practices. Start checking your equipment and checking your truck at the beginning of each shift. So if we don't check our equipment, and I know in that volunteer world, it's very, very hard. You get that call, you're coming from home, you're coming from work, so you may not get to check your equipment on a regular basis like the career individuals or the part-time fire departments get to. But there's still monthly checks, there's monthly meetings, making sure that your equipment is ready to roll when you pull out the door. Do a walk around. Big thing that I've started, when we implemented our driver operator on my shift, was making sure that everything is shut, making sure that everything's secure, making sure that everybody's seated. Because again, past experiences and guys that I've worked with, individuals that I know, doors have been up. Why are roll-up doors so popular on trucks these days? Because the doors that pendulum out, we've taken them off. We've hit our buildings. We've backed into things. We've ran over stuff. Walk-arounds aren't just on working incidents. Walk around your truck before you leave. Talk about the shorelines. How many of us have auto eject or think we have an auto eject? And next thing you know, you're pulling out and you're dragging your pigtail down the road. Tire checks, visual, making sure if it doesn't look right, check it. What's the air pressure? How much pressure are these tires rated for? What's the recommendations? Again, these are things that a driver should know and should be doing at least on a regular basis. Threw that shoreline in there. We just talked about that. Wheel chocks, real big. We pull our trucks out every single morning. We engage the pump. We check the pump. We turn the emergency lights on, turn the generator on, run everything. But how many times do we drop the wheel chocks when we're doing our truck check? So it's, again, working fires, being in the service for 16, 17 years now, being a driver for a little bit before I got promoted, I can't recall if I used the wheel chocks, and I guarantee it's probably only maybe half a dozen, if that. So it's muscle memory. If you do it in your morning checks and you get used to doing it, you'll do it on those working incidents, because next time you go on a call and your trucks are parked somewhere, just look, see how many people chalk their wheels, because it's a safety mechanism. And what's your policy on that? Seat belts, big one. That's why I put that one in capital letters. We have a seatbelt warning device on our truck. You're going down the road, you're marking up on the radio, and all you hear is a ding, ding, ding. Then there's an indicator. The driver sees it. It'll tell you what seat is not buckled. A lot of us are getting dressed going down the road, and we all know the safe practices, everything coming out. So we're not going to beat that dead horse. But seatbelt policies are in place for a reason. And if you're not wearing your seatbelts, what are you really doing to yourself? Again, examples that I use is I used to work for an entity where we found a way around that seatbelt dinger. We took a fuse out. We had some guys come in, do some modifications to it, so nobody really wore seatbelts anywhere in the truck. Some entities are plugging the seatbelts in behind them and sitting on them that way. They're plugging them in behind their air packs. Corey, who's sitting in here now, when he did one of his webinars, he talked about how he still wears his seatbelt and he positions his air pack a little bit differently. So again, it's all just training, different drills, setting yourself up for success. Brakes, parking brakes, engaging the parking brake, knowing your equipment. If the brake fails, what are you going to do? That's where those wheel chocks come into place. Again, use myself as an example. I was driving once on a first due fire, and we go to set the brake, go to engage the pump, and next thing we know, the truck starts rolling down the hill. Our parking brake failed. So it's just, getting your hands on these things and making sure that you're checking them and making sure that they work is going to set yourself up for success, and goes all back into safe practices. Personal protective equipment. Again, this can be departmental. You probably have your own policies, you probably have your own procedures, things like that, but just common practice on working incidents, in my opinion, and what I think can be the safest is if you're doing something, wear your helmet. Because if you're a driver operator, you're probably throwing ladders, you're probably climbing up and down, getting stuff, doors opening. If there's debris flying, stuff like that, you got to protect your head. We issue everybody a pair of work or rescue gloves. So I like to see at least our guys wearing something to protect their hands. If you're parked in a roadway, like the fire that we had this morning, we were on a busy state route. So that high vis coat or high vis vest, they make yourself noticeable to oncoming passerbys or people that are driving by, or something that makes yourself notable, so you're not going to be a NIOS report. Ear protection. Some of the truck manufacturers and stuff like that are starting to make those wireless ear protection. Great thing. Get out of your truck, you can back the guy up, you can still talk to him. I think we could debate this a little bit, go back and forth, because if you're driving and you're working on the scene, you want to kind of hear what's going on. So if you're wearing your headset, all you're really listening to is the radio traffic maybe. So you can't really listen to everybody else. So again, I go back and forth on this one. So again, revert to your department policy or common practice, years of experience, what you can do for your ear protection, or how you would protect yourself, and take a break every now and then, walk away, check on things. That'll help keep yourself safe. And then again, what's your department policy? What does your department policy dictate when it comes to wearing personal protective equipment if you're a driver operator? Do you guys, when you're driving, if you're a driver, how many of you put your bunker pants on in your boots? Again, no one's going to sit here and tell you that you're right or wrong, but personal preference for me, when I drive, I don't like to wear my boots because they're big and bulky. I don't like to wear my pants because my pockets got tools and equipment in them, and it's not the most comfortable thing when you're trying to drive and you're getting that feel for your pedals. And if you're used to driving in your normal station wear, your normal duty boots, what's the differences with driving with your PPE on? Again, practicing, getting out and driving. If you've got a school, you got a warehouse district, you got a big open lot, take your trucks out there. Let some individuals, hey, we're going to go drive today, pull into the school lot. Hey, throw your bunker pants on real quick. Let's see what changes. What's the difference that you feel in those pedals? How's the truck operating? Is it harder to turn? Again, utilizing your time to its advantage. Troubleshooting. We talked about this a little bit. And personal experience, again, was the difference. And these pictures are a little bit better. So, I mean, Jordan, if you guys, can you see these pretty well?
Yeah.
So the picture that you see on the left, again, I'm pretty tired, so I could be a little bit off, but it's the yellow one. It's our yellow crosslay. It's reading about 60 or 70. And then if you look over at my pump discharge, it's reading about 120-ish. And that's our operating pressure. That's our preset. So we have to pull a hand line every day. Every truck check, we pull a hand line, we charge it up, so we get good. We get better at this. That discharge, that number one crosslay lever, is all the way out. We're flowing water. It's at our operating pressure. Our discharge gauge is reading one thing. Our master discharge is reading something else. Again, having somebody that drives on a regular basis and is getting an understanding and knowing their truck to the best of their knowledge and their ability, my driver was like, hey, this is a problem. But on that nozzle that day, we didn't know anything was wrong. My driver popped open the pump panel door there, disconnected, discharged our crosslay number one, speed lay, connected it to the number two gauge, and was like, whew, they're working. They're getting water. He's looking at the stream. He's watching the nozzle. He's watching the hose for reaction. And he's like, hey, we got a bad gauge. We shut everything down. We're cleaning up. And my driver's like, hey, Cap, speed lay number one, the gauge is off. It's not working very well. I think I got it figured out. So I'll get a new one ordered. And he ended up replacing it. We went about a week or so with that bad gauge on there, but those drivers, they were aware of it and they made a note. And so they just, again, utilizing experience and everything, they watched their hand lines, they watched their nozzle team before they advanced in, and they were checking. Everything looked good. And it's troubleshooting. How are you going to fix this stuff? Instead of being an inexperienced pump operator and like, holy crap, this looks bad, and they just hit that increase button because speed lane number 1 is only reading 60 to 70. They don't notice that their discharge gauge is reading operating pressure, and we're just going to keep shooting that thing up until the governor kicks in and won't let it go. Meanwhile, that nozzle team is getting their butt kicked, and we're screaming, hey, back it down, back it down. But again, this guy caught this soon, was able to troubleshoot it, and everything ended up working out, and we do have a new gauge now. Again, this picture is probably a little bit hard to see, but this was the same day. We have a digital reader on our first out engine. Digital readers can be great. It'll tell you if you're pumping in PSI, RPM, you can run through it, see how much water you flow and stuff like that. The big thing that I wanted to get on this one here is there's some green lights up there. There's one that says pumps engaged, okay to pump, and I can't see what the last one says from here. Again, I apologize. But above those, all you see is red slashes. It's just red slash, red slash, red slash, red slash. And that's where it's supposed to be telling you what you're flowing at, what your discharge pressure is, what everything. And it wasn't doing it that day. An inexperienced pump operator or somebody that doesn't have a whole lot of knowledge about this truck may have been like, oh, it's out of service. It's not working. And again, that could be your department policy. Like, hey, we got to take this out till it's fixed. But our guy, my driver, he was able to look over at his discharge gauge and realize, okay, I'm operating at idle. I'm operating at preset pressure. When I hit my increase button, it'll go up. When I hit my decrease button, it'll go down. When I hit that idle, it decreases itself back down. So I'm just not getting a digital reader. No big deal, because the nozzle team is having there's no problems on that nozzle team right now. Everything is working smoothly on that end. So on his end, he was like, hey, we're going to have to take a look at this and get it fixed. And that guy started working on that. Excuse me. The other parts of the truck. So this is a neighboring department's truck, the Western Buckeye. We did a class for them. And this is the picture that you see on the light, or the left, I'm sorry, is a truck information panel, to say the least, for lack of better terms. But this is where you can find most of your information. It'll tell you what the pump make is, what its capacity is. You can get your model number, your serial number, your production number. But all that stuff on the right under that performance, those are your big ticket items. It'll tell you that at 150 PSI, you're getting roughly around 1,500 to 1,515 gallons per minute. Somebody's probably, well, what does that mean to us? What does it mean? If you have a 1,000-gallon tank, you have 1,000 gallons of water on your first due engine, you pull up, you drop both your crosslays. Crosslay number 1 comes down, crosslay number 2 comes down. Let's say it's an 1 3/4 line, 200 foot apiece with low pressure or low pressure, high volume nozzle. You want to throw 175 gallons a minute. I'm not the greatest at math, so I'm going to guess a little bit. I'm going to say about 325-ish is what you're flowing a minute. We told you have 1,000 gallons on that truck. Are you close to your 1,500? No, because we're only flowing around 300 to 350 gallons a minute. But then we're like, well, Cap, what does that mean? You're flowing 300 gallons a minute and you only have 1,000 gallons of water. Again, not being the greatest at math. That tells me I have 3, 6, 9, roughly about 3 minutes before the crew runs out of water. So how fast, as a driver operator, can you establish your own water supply? Or how fast can you get connected to that second due engine? Or how close are they out? So it's conserving your water, using your water appropriately, choosing the appropriate line selection. And again, that can be the role of the officer and the driver, and talking about our expectations. With me and my driver, we roll up in a 1-story single family structure, room and content fire, and I'm like, Zach, let's pull that 2.5 or let's deck gun it. He may look at me like, what are you talking about, dude? This is a crosslay fire all day long. We're not going to burn more than a couple 100 gallons of water. What do you want to waste it all for in our non-hydrant district? So coming back to your indicator panel, where it's going to give you most of your information, know the limitations of your truck. Because if I say, Zach, we're deck gunning this, that's what we're going to do. It's a directive. We deck gun it. We're flowing 800 gallons a minute. And then I tell them to open up 2 cross lays. Can my truck do it? Those are the questions, and those are the things that as operators, officers, those are the things that we need to figure out in training grounds. Picture on the right here, you can see that this is a pump panel, a pump compartment. Set them up to your department's advantage. We were asking a question, what's that big yellow rubber hose there with the chrome coupling pieces on it? Supply line? Oh, okay, what is it? Is it 5-inch? Is it 6-inch? Is it knowing your truck? How long is it? You know, for us, we keep pony sections and we have wheel well sections. We have 5-inch pretty much everywhere on our truck. So it's at the leisure of the driver. How much and where do you want to go? But then that's also going to dictate when you're in your hydrant district, how far apart are your hydrants? Do you have 300 feet to go? Are you 10 foot from a hydrant, or are you 100 foot from a hydrant? That's going to dictate if you're pulling from the bed or if your pony section can get it. And again, so doing trainings, we found that what works best for us. Hey, if I'm watching my mirror, I can pull about 6 to 8 foot past what I anticipate because we train it enough that I know my pony section is going to reach. And it's just going down through there. You know, you got your 3-inch with the Storch fitting. You got a 3-inch with NSTs. You got some different nozzles up there. You got some spanner wrenches, and then your cluster of gauges, discharges, and things like that. That's pump operators. That's your office right there. You should know that compartment like the back of your hand, and you should know these sizes better than anybody else. So now you're looking at the speed lays, cross lays, hose beds. As a driver operator, you should know those too. What's your package? You know, what's the diameter of your hose? What's the nozzle flow rated for? What's this big TFT thing? What can it do? What's its advantages? Is it locked in place? So if you roll your pony section out and it gets kinked somewhere, are you going to have enough back pressure so you're going to run into some problems there? Picture on the right, a monitor nozzle. So we go back to talking about that 1,500 gallons a minute. My truck can only flow 1,500 gallons a minute. If I throw my ground monitor or a Mercury, Blitzfire, whatever you guys use for your terminology, if I throw my ground monitor, I throw 2 hand lines, and then for some reason I'm like, you know, hey, let's get a 2.5 off and put it on up. Can I do that with this truck? Can I do that with my truck? Can you do that with your truck? What are the limitations, and what is the capacity, and what can you get out of your own truck? Again, back in my past, you know, so I worked for a department that these were the drills that we had. If you wanted to drive, you had to do a pump operator test. We called them 5-minute drills, but again, with the expectation of our officer, he wanted it done in 4 minutes. So here you see an out-of-class individual training another member to get prepared for his driver's test. They've got 5-inch laid out. We've come out. We've done this numerous times. This was a big loop. So we kept going around and like, you're too close, you're too far back, until we got this right, where we're like, hey, perfect, spot on. So this guy that was driving that day, he's like, I know where I need to stop at so my pony section reached. You can see that picture on the left. The 5-inch is almost laid out perfectly for our pony section. There's a cross lay off the side of the truck, and then there's a rear speed lay down. So the way that we did this test is the driver operator pulls up, sets his pump, gets his own hydrant, while the backseat firefighter on a 3-man engine pulls that first cross lay, pulls out a 200 footer, and it was a combination nozzle, 175 GPM at the tip. We start flowing water, like right away. Need water, need water, need water. We start flowing water. Then another guy pulls a 2-inch off the rear, starts flowing water off that one. This was a 750-gallon tank, 1,200-gallon pumper. It'll pump 1,200 gallons a minute. 750-gallon tank. You know, so knowing how much water you're flowing and how much time you have, can you hit your own hydrant? Some people could do it. I'm not gonna lie, it was a struggle for me, and the second time I did it, I could never get it done. Then you also see in this picture that we threw some foam stuff in here too. So we were like, man, we want to see what we can do with the old eduction system. And so that's what you're seeing there with that white 5-gallon bucket. And we've got our eductor connected, and we're working on incorporating some foam into our training that day. These are some pictures of my current fire department where I'm currently at. And I throw these in here not because I'm like, oh, hey, look at my kids. And yeah, I know he was out there screaming, and it's not looking at the family aspect of it, although that is what is very important to a lot of us, and it's very important to me. But you can see this individual in the back, sunglasses on his hat. This was before we had a permanent pump operator, but that guy was assigned to driving that day. He was a designated pump operator, and in both of these pictures, where do you see him? His eyes are where that line's going. His eyes watching that nozzle. He's looking at it. You see my youngest son there. We're deploying our bumper line. Our driver that day is back there. He's waiting to see, is it going to kink? Is it going to catch? Where do I need to assist to help get that line completely out? And that's what good drivers do. And then over here on the picture on the right, we're flowing water. Yeah, we don't have the nozzle open all the way yet, but the driver is close enough to the pump panel that if little Mason lets go of that nozzle, and for some reason I drop it, and it starts doing like a snake in the weeds, our driver operator is close enough to that pump panel that he can shut that line down quick enough before it gets out of control and gets somebody hurt. To me, those are good pump operators. We talked about wheel chocks in the beginning of this presentation, correct? There's wheel chocks down. Look at that picture on the right. This was a family fun day at the firehouse. Pizza Saturday is a big deal at our fire department. So this is just as, hey, let's pull the truck out and let the children flow some water, let them see kind of what we do and just get some more interaction. This dude, he threw a wheel chock. How many of us do that on a regular basis? So this, again, it's just utilizing and becoming fluent with your actions. So in this portion of it, we would normally ask for some engagement. But so we'll just kind of go through it, and I'll utilize Jordan or I'll utilize Corey if his mic's working. But it's just, you're the first due engine company. If you guys are city firefighters or you're in an area where you don't get a whole lot of barns, I apologize, but everybody should get a fire every now and then. So you're the first due engine company. Your truck is 300 feet from this fire. So you can't get your truck any closer than 300 feet. What line are you pulling? How much water are you flowing? And then how far out is your second due engine, and how much water do they have? Our first due engine company has 1,300 gallons of water. It's a 1,300-gallon tank. And then the way that we operate is we have 2 ALS medic response units, and if we're full staffed at 8, everybody's in quarters or port of a fire. We're rolling 2 engines right off the rip, 2,300 gallons of water rolling down the road. So this is a barn house. It was a 2-story structure. This is what it looked like when we arrived. So doing scenario-based drills with your crew, your company, you roll up on this fire, Jordan, you're 300 feet, can't get any closer. Knowing the hand lines that are on engine 801, what are you pulling?
I'll probably pull that rear 2.5.
Well, what's your flow on it?
Well, it's got that saber jet, right?
Yep.
And you
so
pick on the rookie.
Yeah. So talk about that saber jet for a little bit. Let's get on that topic. I mean, I don't want to divert away from engine operator, but that's something that you got to think about too. What are the nozzle setups that you're putting on your truck? How many of us run combos? How many of us run smooth bores? How many of us run both? How many of us run a nozzle that's called a saber jet that's a combo or a smooth bore? So you either open it halfway and it's one pattern, you crank it all the way back and it's a different pattern. So you get into those knowing your second due or your mutual aid companies. So let's say we were third due on this fire right here. This particular fire, you roll up, you're the third due engine company. and they're like, hey, we got a line down, we just need bodies up here. You didn't know that they had this saber jet nozzle. You go up there and you wanted to use a particular pattern, crank it all the way back, and it's a wide fog. If you were going interior, that could cause problems. So knowing your second due, knowing your third due, knowing your mutual aid company's equipment and or trucks saves a lot of time, and it's just a simple phone call to say, hey, what are you guys running? Because not that I'm not a fan of the saber jet, but I just, if somebody's going to grab it and they don't really know what it is, it can be cumbersome. So on this fire, Jordan, with let's just say it's a 2.5 with a normal combination nozzle that's flowing. Again, 275, 300 gallons a minute. How much water or how much time do you have before that 1,300 gallons is gone?
About 4.5 minutes.
So is that would that be a wise choice to throw big water in a non-hydrogen area?
I think it depends on, just because I know the backstory of this fire, I think you have to look at A, what's burning, what are your exposures?
Yep.
And what is the profile? Do we pull up, like you said, this is a house barn?
Yep.
Are there people trapped? Yes or no? Did you commit to searches? Are you committing to the interior attack? I think all that plays in. This particular fire, we know that this was just the barn. We're going to confine it. It's not going anywhere. So 1 3/4 hand lines, I think, would be appropriate. But if it was the barn fire in the middle of town,
yep,
or a cluster of other buildings, then maybe you want to hit that thing fast and get a good knock on it, or maybe you want to just throw that unmanned monitor in line as
yep.
Those types of things.
Yep. So then we talked too about the multiple lines, things like that. So knowing who's coming, again, I guess we can say it can be a luxury, rolling 2 trucks right off the rip, 2,300 gallons of water. But again, this was a non-hydrant district. So how far is your closest hydrant? Whose responsibility is that? I put that expectation on myself as the company officer and also on my driver operator. So if he's listening to the radio, because if I'm up here with this guy and we're trying to knock this back, or we're trying to figure out, hey, was anybody in there? What type of exposures do we have? Second due or third due could be marking him. Hey, we're approaching. What do you need? My operator will be like, hey, there's a hydrant about 4 miles down the road. Head south this direction. You'll run into it. Hit that hydrant. So again, driver operator. We do have some hydrant district in our village. So the expectation for my driver, if we're by ourselves, his pony section, he's going to utilize it. He will get his own water and he will maintain his own water, because then he's going to run off of hydrant water and his truck becomes a big appliance. So let's change the scenario up again. Same picture, same fire, but this time you're the first due engine. Let's say you're 200 feet. You can get way up in there. You probably wouldn't want to because it's putting off a lot of radiant heat. But are you going to do anything differently from your last slide?
I think you can do those 200-foot cross lays, the triple off the side.
Yep, because now it's different now. Now you're getting a better picture. You can see it's on the ground basically. Now it's just, like you said earlier, exposures. So at this point, conserving water. That's a big 3-inch line that you've seen run up the driveway, because that's initially what we had set. And we had a 3-inch to 1 3/4 gated down. And then we had a neighboring fire department pull up in the driveway next to us, adjacent to it. And they stretched across so we could hit it that way, because we felt we were gonna max out our first due pump, because we had multiple lines down and we were trying to just overcome some stuff there. So again, it goes back to, what are the limitations? What are the functions of your engine company? What can the truck do? What are the capabilities of your driver? You as the driver, are you comfortable pumping in that type of a scenario? If someone comes up to you second due and they're like, hey, we need that second line, Can you pump 2 hand lines and receive water at the same time? Can you draft non-hydrant in areas? Drafting. Who sets that? Is that the second due, third due? Again, not to dictate policy and procedure for your department, but those are the things that when we're just sitting around, round table talk, we're just BSing with the guys in the bay at the apparatus table, throw some scenarios like this out there. Hey, Jordan, your first due pump operator at 415 Main Street. We know that's a multi-story structure, apartment complex. Engine 2's out of service. We only got 700 gallons of water, and I go to pull a big line. What are you going to do? Oh, Cap, well, that's a hydrant in an area. I know I only got a couple minutes. I'm going to hit that hydrant. I'm going to utilize the hydrant to its fullest advantage and try to get water before we run out. Or we may be like, hey, that's probably not the wisest choice. In closing, some of the resources that I used for this presentation, again, was fire engineering. So I'm going to try to pull that article up for you guys. We can touch it a little bit. Some of my contact information, again, work with Jordan now at the same fire department, but I work close relations with him with Western Buckeye. So if there's anything out there whatsoever, we present this same presentation along with some hands-on stuff, and it normally takes about 6 to 8 hours that we can do on a 1 day or even a 3 day or however long you want it. We can come to you and present this class to you as well. But my contact information, if you want it, reach out to me really for whatever. You got questions, you got comments, you got concerns, you didn't like anything, I'm open to anything, because that's, I want to be a student for the rest of my career. I'm a master of nothing. I'm always a student. I'm always striving to become better. So let me see.
Jeff, can you kill your share screen real quick?
Yep. It's back to you now, Jordan.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. So this Google link right here I put in the chat section. I don't know if it's popping up or not. That is the course eval. Just click on that. It'll send you to the prompt. Fill it out. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. With the CEs, if you're streaming this at your firehouse and your crews are sitting around, email me a course roster of who watched, and I'll send them CEs as well. Be honest. Don't be an idiot about it. Be fair. Don't take advantage of this opportunity, because I will find out somehow.
Yeah, just thanks, guys. I'll try to pull this article up real quick, Jordan.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Are there any questions or anything to Jeff? He kind of picked on the new guy already. That's kind of cool.
I love it. So, all right. So the Fire Engineering magazine that the individual wrote about a driver operator is, how many times have you heard the driver engineer profession referred to as boring or away from action? So early on in my career, I always wanted to be in the back. I don't think I realized enough at that time or had a true understanding what it meant to be a driver operator. So to me, that is the most important position on the fire ground. Nothing else truly matters, because if the driver operator positions the truck wrong, the brakes fail and the truck rolls down the road, the hand lines aren't connected, can't get water out of the truck for some reason, or if the driver operator doesn't function effectively and efficiently, the whole incident is done for. My brain is scattered. I'm trying what do we need? Then so you're trying to get other resources. But if your driver engineer gets everything done smoothly, efficiently, effectively, is good at their job, they practice their job, they understand it, and they have a passion to do it, it's not boring. It becomes, my driver and we have a phenomenal relationship. We're good friends outside of work. Again, I've only known him for about a year. I was promoted from the outside, but the dude is amazing. I mean, he's a workhorse. You give him a task, he gets it done, but he is passionate about driving. When I asked him to drive, he was like, Cap, do I got to cook? Like, Yeah, that's my expectation is that I want you to be able to cook. Well, I really don't like to cook. You know what he does? He looks up recipes, tries them out at home, and then brings them back to work. And I, he's a good cook, and he's not bad by any means, but he's learning and he's making it better. And that's just the simple tasks. He's doing a lot of maintenance. He's doing things that are making himself better, making the department better. So when you hear people say, "Man, that's boring. I gotta drive again today. I hate driving." Why? What are we doing to make this position unpresentable to some people? Because again, in my opinion, it is the most important job on the fire ground. So this guy talks, he said when he asked firefighters if they were going to enter the promotional process for a driver engineer, he would often get that all too familiar responses. This position is boring. I want to stay where I'm at. I want to be in the action. I don't want to drive. You know, you're just standing at the pump panel. You're not really doing anything. You know, that's the most important dude. So if you're a driver engineer or wish to be one during your career, you think that this position, you know, it's not for everybody, but it's for those that are willing to put up, you know, they're going to put the effort in and they're going to do the work. So again, we talked about the duties and responsibilities of what I felt was necessary to be a good driver operator and be proficient and effective and efficient. This guy talks, he said, know the districts, know those that are you respond in first, know the ones that you respond into second, and know the ones that you respond into third. Know your quickest and fastest routes. There may be a straight direct shot to one particular portion of your district, but if you pull up Google Maps, it's going to take you 3 or 4 different ways. Again, like Jordan said earlier in this presentation, Western Buckeye went down to Wellston and helped teach that prioritizing the search. When I was leaving my house, my Apple map on my phone gave me like 3 or 4 different routes. They were all within a couple minutes of each other, but as you start zooming in on it, you're like, man, that's not a straight shot. This is all, you know, like dog leg, chicken leg, whatever you want to call it. So it's driver operator. Know your quickest and fastest routes, because we talk EMS for those of us that run it. Time is tissue. If you're running on a stroke patient, your golden hour or your window of opportunity, you know, we all know those things. So what is it when something's a fire? Again, this fire that we had early this morning, we got dispatched at 11:59. It took us 11 minutes to get there because it was that far out in our district. I'll tell you that the fire came out at 11:59 p.m. and by midnight, I think it was 12:01, we were already pulling off of our ramp. Everybody was dressed. Everybody was ready to go. How did it happen out that way? But we heard it come in before it actually got dispatched because we listened to our sheriffs dispatch us. So we were kind of still monitoring the radio. So we got a little bit of a head start, but everybody was on their game, man. Everybody got up. Everybody got dressed. We were out the door. And it's one of those ones that was like, man, the chief's like, how in the heck did you get out so quick? But then again, it took us a little bit to get there. But inspect your rig and tools and equipment. We talked about doing that stuff. It's my driver, that's his truck. It's not my truck, it's his truck. I get the privilege to ride with that driver. Granted, he gets to drive for me, that I'll say every now and then, but I ride with him. He knows the truck better than I do. He knows how it handles. He knows its quirks. He knows the odds and ends and outs of that truck. It's his. You know, if he's, hey man, something's not acting right, we need to get it in the shop. Hey, we need to get tires on it. It needs to do this. Dude, it's your truck. It's a privilege and an honor to ride with you. And those are Cadillac operators. You know, it's understanding that if it's going to go wrong, it will. And that's when we talked about troubleshooting. What can you do to mitigate or get past that issue? And again, that comes into training and knowledge, potentially experience, a lot more training. Drive safely and legally, you know. So that's, again, we talked about seatbelts. We talked about clearing intersections. You know, what's due regard, all those things. You know, as a driver operator, how many of you take an EVOC course? You know, how many of you set up some type of driver's course, or do you just say, hey, 6 months off probation, you can drive? Or some departments, you may not get that luxury. It's like, hey, welcome to your first day. Have you ever driven a big truck? Today you got to drive, you know. So those are some of the things that we have to be able to overcome. We talked about positioning the fire apparatus, operate your pump at working fires regardless of who connects a line to it. I like to talk about how we do ours. I'm a big 5-inch proponent. Like I would prefer 5-inch all day long if you could connect it, because in my mind it's big water and it's coming to you faster. But I've slowly started to realize out here in this rural setting that I'm in now, 3-inch is sometimes a better choice. It's easier to deploy. You can move it a lot easier. You can throw dual 3 inches. And it's, again, I leave those decisions up to the driver operator. Do they want the 5-inch or do they want the 3-inch? As long as water's coming in and water's coming out the nozzle and we're efficient, we're not running out of water, because we run out of water, but sometimes the water's on the scene. We just don't know how to get it to our trucks. This guy talks about operating and inspects hydrants. We do that at my department. Once a year, we will go out and flush, pump, do all that stuff. So welcome, Jordan. That's a good time, But getting out, Sunday is our district familiarization for my department as well. And when we're out driving, we're not just driving because it's like, hey, Cap said we got to go drive these streets, figure out where we're at. It's look at your intersections, come familiar with your stuff, and then also check where's the nearest hydrant. Do you have a lot of hydrants, or do you only have a few hydrants out here? So that's what we utilize when we're out there. And I thought this article was pretty neat. And so if you guys want to find it, again, it was on fire engineering. It's the firefighting the driver. Goes into a little bit more details. It actually gives the guys talks about the individual that wrote this article as well. And it's one of those things that helped me put this together, because a lot of it was my personal opinion and personal experiences and expectations with